Welcome to our Bolt Action Game Report video. Here's 1,492 points of Fallschirmjäger veterans, 2 squads, 2nd Lieutenant, and a Panzerfaust team. Also a Mortar, 3rd Squad, Pack 75, Stug, and a half-track, and an Artillery Observer. And here's 1,346 points of U.S. Airborne, 2 squads and a 1st Lieutenant, an Air Observer, a Mortar team, 2 machine gun teams, and a Jumbo, and 2 more squads. Here's the table after setup, Americans on the right, Germans on the left, a view of the American left and the American right, showing the Jumbo there by the tape measure, and a view of the German setup from the American side of the table. Here's the 2 Fallschirmjäger squads, the Lieutenant, half-track, and the Panzerfaust. 3rd German Fallschirmjäger squad with the sniper next to the hedgerow, Mortar, Stug, Pack 75, and Artillery Observer on the hill. And here's the start of the game with first activation has the American squad advancing into the building, and the Lieutenant and Mortar Observers both advancing. Then the 2nd squad advances to the hedges, the 3rd American squad and the hedgerows advance to the edges. Then the German sniper fails to activate. The German squad in the hedgerows opposite the Americans advances to the edge and takes a shot. The Mortar forward observer advances to the hill in the backdrop. The Pack 75 on the hill takes a shot and misses. The 4th American squad in the far background starts its map edge mambo. The German squad activates and occupies the building opposite the Americans. The German lieutenant activates and brings a squad with him to the next building. The American air forward observer attempts to call in an airstrike. The German Panzerfaust attempts to activate and fails to. The American machine gun team in the bocage in the back advances to the edge. The American Jumbo attempts to activate for a rally. The 2nd American machine gun team takes a shot at the Germans in the opposite building. Then the German half-track advances and takes a shot at the Americans in the buildings. Then the Stug in the background takes an advance towards the woods in the background. Beginning of turn 2. American squad in the back continues its advance along the table edge. The German half-track fires into the building, killing 2 Americans and causing more pins, and the Panzerfaust continues to advance. The American machine gun team in the bocage fires, and the German squad in their bocage fires across back at them. The sniper again fails to activate. The American lieutenant advances towards the buildings and activates the squad in the building to shoot back at the Germans, and another American squad activates and fires at the Germans in the building opposite them, followed by another American machine gun team on the hill firing at the Germans in the occupied building. The German 75 on the hill takes another ineffective shot. The American squad in the bocage takes a shot at the Germans opposite them. The American Jumbo attempts to rally and fails. The German squad and the lieutenant fire at the building opposite them, causing more American casualties. The German forward observer on the back hill attempts to call in an artillery strike and fails. And the Stug continues its advance between the woods. The German mortar fires at the Americans in the opposite bocage. The American mortar calls in fire onto the Germans in the occupied buildings. The German squad activates to fire at the Americans in the opposite building from them, ending the turn. Beginning of turn 3. First activation will be the Stug in the background advancing around the woods and taking a shot at the Jumbo. Next, the Americans assault the building and clear it of the Germans and occupy it. Then the Germans in the remaining building fire across the street to the building, clearing it of Americans. The American Jumbo attempts to rally again and fails. The American air observer activates and calls in an airstrike onto the Germans. The German mortar team activates and fires a few rounds at the Americans in the bocage. The Americans at the far end of the table fire at the Pack 75, killing 2 of the 4 crew. The Panzerfaust team advances to next to the church. Half-track advances and fires. Germans in the bocage fire at the Americans opposite them. The German sniper repositions. The American lieutenant repositions, and the FO calls in fire. The American machine gun advances into the cleared building. The American squad in the bocage fires at the Germans opposite them, ending the turn. This is the turn. Beginning of turn 4. First activation will be the Stug taking a shot at the Jumbo and bouncing. The American machine gun team and lieutenant activate to fire at the Germans in the building opposite them, as does the American squad in the newly occupied building. The American machine gun team in the far bocage activates and fires at the Germans in the bocage opposite them. The American Panzerfaust team emerges from behind the church and takes a shot at the jumbo, finding it falls short. The German squad in the bocage opens up and fires at the Americans opposite them. The American jumbo tank activates to rally. The German mortar team activates and fires a few rounds at the Americans opposite them. The sniper activates and takes a shot at the Americans on the flanking move, which was ineffectual. The Germans in the remaining occupied building fire and cause a few casualties at the machine gun team. The forward air observer calls in an airstrike, and the American squad in the bocage fire at the Germans opposite them. The half-track fires at the machine gun, and the 75 on the hill fires, ending the turn. Turn 5 opens up with the American lieutenant activating the machine gun team and the squad in the newly occupied building and firing at the Germans in the building opposite them. The German Stug activates and fires at the jumbo, which again bounces, and the jumbo attempts to rally again. The German squad at the hedgerow fires at the remainers of the Americans opposite them, as does the mortar behind them. The German Panzerfaust team behind the church takes another shot at the jumbo, which bounces. The American mortar team fires at the German occupied building. The half-track fires at the machine gun team in the building. The German squad and lieutenant in the sole occupied building activate and fire at the machine gun team, eliminating them. American squad at the hedgerow fires off back at the Germans, ending turn 5. Beginning turn 6. First activation is the German Panzerfaust team taking another ineffective shot at the jumbo. Next activation has the Stug firing at the jumbo, which again bounces. The Americans activate, bringing more fire down on the Germans in the sole occupied building. And the German squad behind the bocage takes some shots at the remnants of the American squad opposite them. The half-track advances and fires at the Americans in the bocage. The American machine gun team fires back. The sniper takes in another ineffective shot. The American flanking squad wipes out the PaK-75 and the forward observer. The German squad activates in the building, which was boxcars, so the American player had them fire at the lieutenant inside the building, fragging him. The remaining units of the Americans in the bocage fire, ending the game with an American victory, the Americans losing 411 points, while the Germans had lost 667 points. Thank you for listening.